Hello friends, we are in part 2 now of a video. If you remember the previous one, I got this area ready over at my mom's house. And so I thought, well, let's introduce my mom today. For those that haven't followed for a while, this is my mom, Jody. This is the house.
Good morning. Is it still morning? Nope, it's afternoon.
Oh, it is afternoon.
Okay,
no, it's afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Well, actually, they don't know what time it is. It really actually doesn't matter when you're saying. Hello. So this is the house I grew up in. It's about catty corner from where I live now. And this is an area in my mom's east lawn. So a few years ago, we took out her up to like 80 to 100-year-old in-ground garden in this area. You had a vegetable garden here that great-grandma had, grandma had. And we decided to move that, and it kind of created more of a just nice lawn area, right?
Yeah.
And you were saying it, though, it missed something.
Right.
And what did it miss?
Flowers. Blooming flowers. I love blooming plants.
Mom used to have a lot of different
color.
Yeah, you used to have more flower beds, and it kind of, with the garden changing, it kind of changed what it was like up here. So a few years ago, I started thinking about this and devised, since we have trees all along here, we want to put some type of flower bed in front, but you want it to be low maintenance.
Easy to take care of.
Easy to take care of.
Yeah.
And somewhat drought tolerant.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, because we never know anymore.
We never know.
Yeah.
We have some years where we have decent normal rain, which can average about an inch a week. And then we have other years
where we go for 2 months without any rain.
Which actually the last 2 years we were in a drought both those years. So we're talking about those years. So today I'm going to talk about the plants, what we're doing, why we're doing them, and how this is going to be easy care for Mom. She has noticed that in some of my flower beds, I do a chop and drop method in a lot of my perennials where I have beautiful big beds of perennials. In the spring, I just mow them and self-mulch them back into the soil. They compost and grow, and that's it. So that's not a lot of worry.
Right.
We're gonna pack the beds so over time they grow enough that they don't have a lot of space in between for weeds, and they're just full of beautiful growth and texture. But what I'm gonna start with today is actually taking you through the plants, explain why I'm using them, what I'm gonna be doing with them, start laying them out, and then we'll get to the actual, a little bit more hard work.
Yeah. Oh, the fun work.
The fun work.
Planting plants is fun.
It is.
Love getting dirty.
Mom is well seasoned with knowing how to plant plants. So we'll go through all that too, but let's get started. So the bed has been prepped. It is added compost to it that is tilled in. I added 2 architectural salvage stones that are gonna act as seats, which actually are gonna really be a nice kind of structure start. And you remember that last year I planted in a few Carigina salvia that Mom had purchased, and we decided we're gonna go here, so I'm just working around them and they're part of the design. So what I wanna show you first is the actual design. Now you can see all the plants in front of me, and you can see that there's these big electrical boxes too that we really kind of wanna combat. So what I have is planted already is a fringe tree that's just still leafing out. So in time, that's gonna get, 12 to 15 foot tall, wide, and it will kind of act as a nice structure to somewhat hide all this equipment, let alone, I think the bed is gonna be distracting enough with all the texture and color that's going into it. So I do wanna show you, best I can here, some of the plan. Now you're gonna notice, this is just a hand-drawn plan. I did do it to scale, but I did it in somewhat of a unique style. You're gonna tell this is not near as formal as other things I've planned or probably as landscape plans you've seen. This plan is somewhat inspired by Piet Oldhoff, who I've really been enjoying following his beautiful designs at so many places around the world. But what I like is we're choosing plants that are gonna naturalize, are going to grow, and are gonna actually get kind of bigger within their own areas, but also be able just to flow into each other, which I think is key here. Now, I've marked things kind of with a key, and they're labeled for me to know, but what you'll notice is there's not defined lines. There's somewhat squiggles and growing into each other, and that's because that's what perennials do. A lot of perennials don't stay just within one clump. They can grow over time and they can produce more, and that's what I want a lot of these to be able to do. When I started gardening at my own house about 14 years ago is when I moved in. I really thought I wanted to go everything formal, and thought things needed like full structure. And over the years, you realize some of those formalities, some of those plants aren't always the best for the dry conditions we can get in Iowa, for resistance to the environment as it, continues to adapt to what's going on. And so what I've been doing is now picking plantings that take less care, but give me actually more blooms than I used to have, and really work well within the space I have. You sometimes have to learn what does well for you. So this is gonna be a mixture of ornamental grasses and lots of beautiful flowering perennials that all fit though within a same palette. And that's how I go about picking a design for something. I like to pick textures, colors, foliage that all somewhat feel cohesive, even though they slightly vary. So there's gonna be lots of different colors of purples to slightly pink you're gonna see on some of it. And that's really my key. So we're gonna start down with the grasses. And I'm doing, right now it always feels like when grasses are just young or starting off in the year, you don't think a lot of them. But what I like is just notice already with the wind we're having today, how they dance in the wind and they change color just with the sun hitting them. They're a brighter green versus that shadowed green. So this is the one you're gonna see all over. You've seen this planted so many times because it's such an easy care one. And it's Carl Forster. And what I like about it is it's super easy to kind of keep in a great confined space because it goes very upright and it works really well in a mass planting. You're gonna notice what I'm picking here is a lot of small mass planting areas. It's also really good in full sun. It can take a little bit of partial shade and it likes well draining soil and can do well once established in drought, which is what all these are gonna do well. So beside it, I wanted a smaller grass that I could put more in front to have different textures of the grasses. Both of these will get different plumes on them too, which is their bloom. So there's just a dwarf fountain grass, the Hamlin. And I really like how simple it is. I like the plumes it gets on top and how they stay on it all winter. So you have that winter interest and year round kind of visibility. Back here, you're gonna notice one thing I love about this penstemon, it's the Midnight Masquerade, is the color of just the foliage itself. So notice it's gonna have this purple to green foliage, and that's what I really like is even without the flowers yet, it looks really beautiful. Obviously when it flowers, you're gonna get so many blooms. And again, what's nice is this gets to a decent size so it can be mid to the back area of a flower bed, and it really fills in nicely. In front here is one that I used to be scared of planting, but sea holly not only is really beautiful in arrangements, it also is resistant to a lot of things because if you notice, it has a little bit of a prickliness. So you wanna think about where you put it, but if you have issues with rabbits or with deer, this is a great one, super drought tolerant, super beautiful blooms. I mean, if you look at them, look at that fun kind of thistle-like bloom. That's what I'm really excited about. For the last two, I have more of that Caradonna salvia. You've seen me use this so many times at my house, and that's because it's super easy. So I planted those right there in August of last year. Look how much they're actually growing already. This gets nice and tall. It's very upright. I love that the stems have that dark purple color to them, and it's a very sturdy salvia, which I really appreciate. And then over here is Liatris, which, if you know Liatris, you know it's always a stunner in the garden. It gets big, beautiful blooms. This is the Blazing Star, so it has that really bright kind of pink purple color. And again, what I like is if you notice, every texture of foliage on these perennials is different. So even as they emerge in the spring, we're gonna have such fun varying textures and colors going throughout the whole garden. So what I'm gonna do now is just have the camera set up so you can see I'm gonna start laying out all the plants, which is gonna take me a little bit. I'm gonna go off of my design, obviously, which I can adjust as I'm needing to if anything needs to be adjusted. But really, it's just setting them out. And since I don't have those defined lines, but you saw curve into each other, that's over time with growth. So at first, the plants are gonna start small, but they're all perennials. And what I did do is take into account their mature size to know where to place them. So I'm gonna start placing and then we'll talk about spacing. I have all the plants laid out and you're gonna notice a couple things. There's a couple holes. That's because the black-eyed Susan aren't in yet, so I couldn't show you those, but I left areas where they're gonna go. They're gonna give that pop of yellow. That will just kind of offset and kind of just accentuate certain areas, which I think will be really nice against a lot of the pinks and purples. You're also gonna notice the spacing from the trees, and I wanna talk about that because what's important to note is anytime you're doing a planting around something that isn't at its mature size, the Techni arborvitae all along the road, they were just planted 2 years ago at about a 6 foot height with large starts, but they're gonna get a lot taller in time. So I accounted for their mature size and brought everything in from those. So you're gonna see what looks like a gap in the back. It's not a gap, it's accounting for that size of tree in maturity. So what you're gonna notice is black-eyed Susan will go obviously in any of the holes you see, but what you can see is I'm spacing things to show, again, what I want them to grow into each other as. So take for instance these Hamlin, which are dwarf fountain grass. They get anywhere from that like 24 to 36 wide and kind of not quite as tall. But what I want is them to flow into each other in time. So I have them spaced about 2 feet, so they will always be touching each other once they really start growing, and that's really what I want. Another thing you're gonna notice is, look how big and beautiful those penstemon are. Well, what I'm doing, again, a hole for black-eyed Susan, which will look really nice there. But if we come back here, I wanna show you the penstemon. Do not feel bad doing this. When you find perennials that are big and beautiful like this, I took a big garden knife, I cut it in half, and you have 2 plants. So you know what? Yeah, it saves a little bit of money. They're perennials, they're gonna grow fast. So I split some of them as needed, and I'll be splitting. Sometimes I do it with a spade, sometimes I do it with a knife. But depending, sometimes grasses split really easily too. These fountain grass really look like they could be. And then there's other perennials that can't be. The sea holly, it has 1 start and 1 crown, as you're gonna notice here. That can't be split, and that's okay. You just have to work around what you have. So around this electrical area, you're gonna notice quite a big area of gap. That's because that fringe tree is gonna grow, and I wanna not plant too much under it and then later on have it shaded out. So I'm planting towards the front where I know it will still get sun, and that's what I'm gonna worry more about. Behind it, I'm really, expecting in time, obviously, that fringe tree to get big enough. It's only been planted about 1.5 years, so I know it will get much bigger. As we move over, I have always said these limelights, they were put in quite a few years ago in hopes of first covering those boxes when they put in. This plan came after. So I'm gonna leave those for now. They're gonna add some green back there. They're gonna bloom for quite a few years. As that fringe tree gets too big, we're gonna process those later. But then over in here, I'm doing mostly grasses. Right now it is early afternoon. This gets sun all morning up until about 1 p.m. So these grasses will do well, and they do okay with some of that shade too. I picked grasses that do well. And we're gonna put Black-Eyed Susan in here at the end to show that pop of color before it gets to the penstemon and the sea holly and everything else. So you can see spacing is important and to know your areas. It's not worth planting everything if you don't know the mature size of what you already have there or the mature size of what you're planting. You wanna make sure you give ample space so everything does well, but in this case, I'm doing it so it packs the beds. I want these to be really full. I want them to flow into each other and naturalize in time to really fill in the space in almost a prairie-like setting. So what we're gonna do is get Mom over here and we're gonna start planting. So Mom and I are gonna get started planting, but I always wanna go over, obviously all these are gonna be the same thing. They're about 1 gallon size, other than the ones I'm splitting. But what I do want to show is the simple things of how quick it is to plant. So I have it started, and you can tell our soil is really easy. We got a little bit of rain last night, didn't we?
Well, I don't know, did we?
We did. We got,
okay.
I heard it shower for a while. I don't know how much.
Oh yes, we did before I went to bed. Yeah, not very much.
But this is a good explanation to show what well-draining soil is. Over the last few weeks, we've gotten some nice rains, but you can see even after last night's rain, how easy it is that this is not waterlogged right here. So what I want to show is you need to know how well draining your area is. All these items want well drained soil, meaning they don't want to sit in water, be close to a pond, or be wet all the time with wet feet. So that's a really good indication, even though we've had rain, that this is still easy to plant in, it's loamy and really good. So what I'm starting with always is some biotone. Anything I plant, I'm always gonna put a nice scoopful of biotone in. I usually just do it by the handful, and I'm gonna try to do it on everything, even including the things I'm splitting, obviously, because it gives those roots something to acclimate to. So yesterday we added compost to this, which you saw in the first video. Today we're doing the biotone. When we're finished, we're gonna mulch everything just to make sure we suppress any weeds and retain that moisture. But we have a few things here to plant, as you can see, and that's why Mama's helping.
And do you talk about how we break up the roots?
No, I didn't say that. You can mention that.
It's always good to take the root ball here and kind of break it up, and it doesn't even hurt if you take a little bit of it away, right? Do you agree with that?
I always think so, yeah.
It kind of loosens it up, makes new roots form right away.
Which I think the important thing you can tell, Mom isn't ripping it apart. She's like loosening the roots, because what I always notice is plants that are growing, like all these have a decent size to them, they usually are kind of tight. Like you can see the roots are even coming out the bottom of the pot. That usually means they're getting kind of tight in the pot, and it just, to me, when you break them up, I think that's what Mom used to tell me, it helps them just want to start branching out into that new area you're going to put them.
Right, and it helps them to form new roots right away and make it stronger.
I agree with that. So what we're going to do is we're going to start planting all these.
Are you putting these things back?
No, we don't need tags. I don't want tags all over. We can always watch this video and remember what we planted. So we have everything planted, and now we are putting down our layer of hardwood mulch. And Mom was just asking how thick, if I wanted to go really thick, and I was saying I only want to go about 2 inches. And the reason is we want all these perennials to be able to naturalize and get larger. Rock or anything too thick can inhibit that. And that brings me to things like rock and landscape fabric. And Mom, why do we not usually choose those 2 things?
Well, for one thing, if you want to divide stuff later or replace something, you can't dig into landscape fabric or rock. I've tried, I've been there, you come out with a knife and you have to cut it away. So we've just found, mulch is the best thing. And you actually, maybe for the first couple of years, you have to put it on every year, but then after that, every other.
And what's wonderful about all these perennials, every year we are going to start with the push mower, mulching them, like chopping them with the mower, mulching them in place, letting them fall. So over a couple years, it's gonna build its own compost and mulch, and eventually we will never have to add more mulch to this because all the green material every season is gonna create that compost and mulch it needs and add nutrition and all that wonderful. Now, right now, this mulch is gonna act as weed suppression, moisture retention, and it just looks nice until all of these fill in. But I think you'll agree, Mom, perennials grow very quickly.
Yes, they do.
And already, you can see we're putting in quite a few. It won't take long, even in this year, probably to see a massive change in the growth.
Probably right. I mean, perennials grow pretty fast, and these are all pretty basic, normal perennials that...
Hardy. Hardy and easy growing, and drought tolerant. Now, usually we would water everything as we're planting it. We have a lot of moisture in the soil, like beautiful, like I'm happy with it.
Oh yeah, beautiful.
We both feel really excited to start the year off like this, but I also have a lot of rain coming up in the forecast. So I'm gonna watch these, and if we don't get, Mom was mentioning, if we don't get around an inch a week at least.
Yeah, then you'll wanna water it.
Then you would wanna water.
And we'll still have to watch.
Oh yeah. I mean, we're in spring, so we're hopefully beginning more rain. As we get to summer, we'll have to watch, and as they dry out, we'll have to keep them watered. So I don't know if you can tell, but if you can tell by Mom's knees, this did take a little bit of manual labor. But
I crawl in the dirt. He somehow stays much cleaner than me.
I kind of crouch.
I get filthy when I'm
outside. I do
outside.
yoga as I plant, I always say. I stand here and then I just like crouch and do it. I don't know, it's what I...
Me, I kind of sit in it, crawl around,
But I think it's good to remember, a few hours of hard work now are gonna result in years and years of beauty. So are you excited to see this grow?
Yes, I'm very excited.
I think really the 2 benches are gonna be really fun because as the perennials grow in, they'll start growing in around those benches and it'll kind of set them off better. But really for the coming months, if you keep watching, I'm gonna be showing on stories, on videos, how this is growing and how it's establishing. And I know what's fun about it is Mom can see it from the house, which is behind. She can see it from the vegetable garden over here, and then this whole lawn. So you get views of this kind of at different points all around the farm, which is really exciting.
Which was really fun,
And if you'll notice, we planted big swaths of mass planting. So we did 6 to 8 or more plants at a time. And from a distance, that's gonna give you a bigger visual impact. So even from the house, you'll be able to see a big spot of pink, a big spot of purple, so on and so forth. So keep checking back, I'll keep showing you, and until then, go plant something, because if nothing else, it may bring you together with family, or at least give you enjoyment.
And when I get tired, I can go sit on a bench.
That's true.
Wonderful.
That's true. Thanks for helping.